Creepy military stories. Empty boats. U.S. Navy photographer here. In the deepest parts of the ocean, you will often steam past small boats that are empty, or seemingly empty. Sometimes they look like they just got loose and no one looked for them. Sometimes they look disgusting, like someone lived in them until they just couldn't anymore. And sometimes it's obvious someone is still in them, but they haven't moved for weeks. Laughing soldiers. There were multiple instances of North Vietnamese soldiers just walking straight up to U.S. forces in the middle of combat. They'd look at them. They wouldn't even raise their weapon or unsling it. They would just start laughing at the U.S. soldiers. Then the U.S. guys shoot them. I'm sure there's some sort of explanation of why this happened, but it's still pretty creepy that the enemy might just walk up to you and just start laughing in your face, seemingly not caring whether you shoot them or not. Screams. We wrote it off as just some of the instructors messing with us, but while training at JWTC, there was a blood-curdling scream in the middle of the night. It definitely sounded like a woman, and the lieutenant in charge made us do a quick accountability check. Then he started radioing the training center to see what the hell even happened. The instructors went out from their compound, did some checks, but he didn't find anything. They said it's not the first time they had units out there calling in to report the same thing. A grave. As a Marine, I used to have the graveyard patrol shifts at the Beirut bombing memorial part. Part of the memorial is dedicated to a veteran cemetery. Oddly enough, I never got freaked out about being completely alone in a remote cemetery. In the middle of the night, surrounded by dense woods on all sides, it was actually kind of peaceful, to be honest. However, one night, I was patrolling near the perimeter fence where some of the oldest headstones are, when I heard the sound of a woman humming. I followed the sound and noticed a light glowing through the vines and bush of a large tree. As I approached, I could literally feel my hair beginning to lift as if there was some sort of electrical current in the air. I continued to push aside the brush, and what I saw took my breath away. It was an old, weathered headstone with a large cross etched into the marble. Only the cross was glowing bright, a vivid blue, like a neon bulb. The humming was also suddenly much louder and had a weird plurality to it, like it was coming from hundreds of voices at once. Needless to say, I freaked out, screamed like a little girl, sprinted back to the parking lot. I radioed the guard who was supposed to relieve me, forced him to come early, then spent the rest of my shift in the cab of his truck. I don't think he ever believed me, but he stayed in his truck and didn't go out on patrol until the sun was fully up. A few days later, I worked up the nerve to return to the grave, during the day, of course. As I expected, in the light of day, it was just a completely mundane headstone. There was no name, only the aforementioned cross. I ran my hands over the stone, checked to see if maybe there was some sort of hidden light source, solar panel, but no. It was just plain, solid, unremarkable stone. The humming was gone too. I eventually returned to my normal shift, but never again experienced anything out of the ordinary. I never learned whose grave that was either, but I find myself thinking about it from time to time. It certainly sounds absurd when I say it out loud, and I suppose it could have been hallucination, trick of my tired brain, but I don't actually believe it was. I do think it was real, a ghost or spirit of some sort. I don't think it was malevolent, though, at all. I was by myself in the ghost soldiers. I was by myself in the engine room of a submarine on the midwatch, just a newly reported sailor trying to find equipment so I could display knowledge to one of the watchstanders. There were a number of bays in the engine room lower level with narrow passages that passed through the center. I came down on the ladders and swore I saw someone walk across the ship about 15 feet in front of me. I could even hear his footsteps as he walked around a corner and passed out of sight. There were only three problems. He was wearing utilities, an older light blue blouse and dark navy slacks. But nobody had utilities anymore. They'd been phased out about 3 years earlier. There was also one other person in the engine room that late at night, and he was standing at the top of the ladder behind me, waiting for me to come back with an answer to his question. And three, the person wasn't actually there. I wrote it off as sleep deprivation, but I'll admit it did shake me for a while. Yeah, about 4 months or so later, I had gone out to sea with another submarine, same type. While I was there, I met a sailor who had previously served on the old ship. While I was there, I met a sailor, and after a few weeks of standing watch with him, he told me a story about a sailor he knew who committed suicide while on watch while he served on my ship almost a decade earlier, in engine room, lower level, while he was dressed in his utilities. Wish I could have gotten a picture of the look on my face. I'm sure it was the definition of disbelief. More ghosts. A friend of mine went to Afghanistan and got stationed in an area that was used as a base by the Soviets. He swears that sometimes when he was on sentry duty, he could hear whispers that didn't sound English or Farsi or any of the local languages. He's convinced that it was Russian.